Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT. And we are back with another thread. Today we're talking about decks that were a lot better than they looked, and they already looked really good. So frequently when we talk about something like an underrated deck, what people get in their mind is an image of a rogue strategy that, with the benefit of hindsight, we can see was way better than the tier in which it was placed. Today, I want to talk about the decks that have a truly unbelievable skill ceiling. Strategies that, in the case of the deck in front of you, may have even been the top dog at the tournament, but were strikingly different depending on if they were in the hands of a good player or a truly great one. You may have come away from a tournament with an understanding that one strategy was the best deck, but misunderstood by how much. So today I want to talk about those strategies that in the hands of someone good felt absolutely unbeatable, and I'm beginning with one of my favorites, Unchained. I played a lot of the weird pre-Agov format that was like Hurley and Labyrinth and Unchained and Rescue Ace and Kashtira, and it was apparent pretty early on that Unchained was probably the best thing in the room. The deck was strong enough that even kind of a mid player could do well enough to beat seasoned veterans. But in the hands of a really great player, leveraging these decks' specific points of interaction, playing around as much as possible, and engineering an end board that was layered enough it could play into absolutely everything, had duelists scratching their head for sideboard tech the entirety of this deck's legal lifespan. Historically, this is when Jesse Cotton thought it was time to bust out the Marionette Mites. The difference between a good and a great player on Unchained was night and day. And if you sat down against a great player on the strategy without a comprehensive plan, you could rest assured you were totally cooked. Let's see what you all came up with. But first, it's a merch plug. In case you missed it, Luke Von Karma, Peeps Yu-Gi-Oh, and I have a podcast, Will of the Council. It's been a blast to make, and many have been demanding merch. Well, we sold out of the merch. Then we restocked, and we sold out of the restock. Now what we have available is the dregs. I got the fine folks at pyramid.com to root around the storeroom like a pack of wild animals, and I'm happy to announce we have for sale like 3 total kill button shirts in weird sizes, a handful of enamel pins, and burying the lead here, a full restock of the hats. If you want to walk around with a red hat that says kill on it, literally, not metaphorically, check out the link in the description. Now back to the video. Norgard's got a great one, Draco Tail. It seems weird to say this now because Draco Tail is well known for being so powerful for so long that people are sick of it, but in its associated format, it was largely considered to be the worst of the 3 between Vanquishal, K9, and Yummy. A lot of that is the fact that its ceiling is just pretty low. You're gonna end on what, an Arthalion and 3 set cards? Like, that's not gonna pass muster in a format where you can get Paradise locked. And as a result, people were playing loose, unoptimized piles with a whole bunch of ceiling heighteners well into the deck's lifespan. Until people figured out, no, you should really just get good with it. Spend your time mastering the options the deck does have, eking as much advantage as you can out of their individual cards, and you will reap rewards even if you're playing against the biggest pile of combo slop since, since the last Sam stream. The evidence for this, of course, is the fact that Jesse Cotton was able to win with this strategy immediately after Draco Tail took huge hits on the ban list and was considered dead by pretty much everyone. Purifier King is an absolutely correct answer. There's a reason Dinkabui played this for like half a decade. It's an archetype with a lot of options. Importantly, unlike almost everything else, it has the capacity to interrupt an opponent whose deck you know better than they do. It's got an unbelievable ability to make pushes into strategies. It's got an unbelievable ability to interact with opponents as early as turn 0. Man, this deck is just so much fun to play. You know, the most frustrating part of that Ryan Yu clip is that it definitely was him.
It's not the deck, it's me.
A good player can really make this deck sing, and he is one of them, but he's not the only one. The thing about Sky Striker is it's easy to remember it as the pet deck of a generational player, but it's also independently really powerful. Since then, it has topped a whole bunch more times. We should have never given you guys back Engage. I don't know why Engage went to 3. Don't be doing that shit. This one kind of goes without saying. Yeah, the Tearlaments, of course, is one of these strategies. You could mill 5 and get lucky even if you were only okay, but if you put enough game actions in a strategy, the players who know how to wield those game actions the most effectively are going to be the ones that win events, and boy did some pros go on a fucking tear during this format. God, I miss Tier so much. Kind of a weird one here, but I agree with Branded. For a long time, the purview of Branded was twofold. Firstly, it aimed to resolve Branded fusion, and if you did, you won. If you didn't, you lost. And secondly, it aimed to put a Gimmick Puppet Nightmare on your opponent's side of the field. If you did that, you won. If you didn't, maybe you had a backup line that made a Mirror Jade or something. Those two crutches enabled pretty bad play players to get pretty far with Branded for pretty long. And I should know, I got my invite with this when we were playing adventure cards. But as the deck evolved, as duelists got more comfortable with the cards in it, and as more cards released, it became harder and harder to interact with this strategy. It's to the point now where I'd consider it a misplay to hold an Ash Blossom for a Branded fusion. The guides that tell you when to hand trap mostly say you should just fire it on the Branded and High Spirits courtesy of Wowbaz. But even without Wowbaz, individuals were getting their Branded fusion ashed and then making a board anyway, excited that that minigame was over and now they could play against a 4-card hand that could not possibly include an Ash. Really strong deck with a lot of really unbelievable options. God, remember when everyone was on fusion duplication? Adam's got a great one. Memento. Memento's always been a dark horse, hardy. So when it comes to Memento, the difference between the good players and the great players were if you could tell they were doing a YouTube combo in their head. Sometimes you could lean in close and hear the background music from Yu-Gi-Oh! Tube just coming out of their ears, and that was a pretty good tell. This deck's combos were so involved that frequently a lot of individuals just memorized a couple lines a la DDD and never deviated from them, and did well as a result. But the really good players knew where to pivot. I've seen people make boards with this deck you couldn't imagine. I've seen boards play through things that I couldn't imagine them playing through. For example, actually resolving Tata no Toshigo, not always necessary. Early on, people made a habit of cutting the terrible spell traps that everyone else said you absolutely needed to layer and hide in the ceiling on your end boards. And despite the meme, I've seen a lot of people make SP Little Knight pass with a couple of hidden pieces of interaction and beat a 3-card hand. I think secretly Memento might still be strong. It's that frightening and mysterious to me. Melodious is correct. And, you know, as an aside, you can probably put any deck that Herman has ever played on here. That Mitsurugi Ogdoatic deck, that B-Trooper deck. But of course, Melodious is among them. Kevin played a significant amount of this deck as well, and the difference between someone who is hoping to spike Ostinato and someone who has an understanding of what the cards can do, especially into established boards, is just unbelievable. The fact that it has the capacity to make this like unbeatable Towers board put it in a class of its own insofar as duelists were used to making the unbeatable Towers board and couldn't understand what to do otherwise. That otherwise is what separated the good from the great. This is a Genesis answer, and unfortunately I am intimately familiar with that because, well, I've been playing a lot of Genesis. It's functionally my full-time job right now. Blitzclick is a really strong deck. Strong enough that you can be okay at the deck and still take names. But if you are great at the deck, it straight up feels unbeatable sans bricking. I'll give you an example. At the most recent remote regional, I went X1 and lost to the person who won on Blitzclick. Blitzclick is a deck that I'd labbed out, I'd expected to play against, I had sideboard plans, etc. But I was shocked to see my opponent from the get playing the deck in a way that I was totally unfamiliar with. Genesis's lack of hand traps that functionally end the turn means you can go really hard really early, and they ended up summoning Whisker like no less than 5 times over the course of 3 turns. Really broken strategy in the right hands. All in all, I don't want this video to come off as critical to those who play the powerful decks at a mid-level and still see success. I instead want you to think of it as a challenge. If you are a good player, you could level up to great and be one of those people I whine about in a post-match tournament report. I think this person misunderstood the prompt, but I do want to use this opportunity as a jumping off point to talk about Toon. You're going to see a lot of mid-tier players beating good players on Toon. You are going to see a lot of good players playing a version of Toon that feels totally unbeatable. Be prepared.